LeBron's message that shook New York. LeBron James did not just praise Jalen Brunson. He may have just sent a warning to the entire NBA, because when the most powerful voice in basketball speaks about a champion, the league listens differently. This was not some random compliment after a big game. This was LeBron James watching the New York Knicks climb back to the top of the basketball world. Watching Jalen Brunson become the face of Madison Square Garden, and then stepping into the conversation at the exact moment trade rumors started getting dangerous. And that is what makes this story explosive. The Knicks had just completed the kind of championship run New York fans had been dreaming about for more than 5 decades. Brunson, the undersized guard so many people doubted, was no longer just a nice signing, no longer just a tough playoff performer, no longer just a feel-good story from Dallas. He was Finals MVP. He was the engine. He was the reason New York believed again. But the celebration did not even have time to cool down before the whispers started. Could the Knicks chase another superstar? Could they break up part of the core? Could LeBron somehow become involved? Could New York take the biggest risk in basketball and touch the very foundation that just brought them a title? That is when LeBron's words became much bigger than basketball analysis. He praised Brunson's impact. He talked about how a smaller guard could still dominate winning at the highest level. He studied the Knicks like a man who was not just watching from far away, but measuring something. And when LeBron studies a team, people start asking the real question, is he admiring them, or is he imagining himself inside that story? Because LeBron's own future is not settled. The Lakers are uncertain. Cleveland will always carry emotion. Golden State offers history, but New York offers something different. A ready-made champion, a powerful culture, and a leader in Brunson, who has already done what critics said he could never do. So now the NBA is staring at one question that could change everything. Was LeBron simply giving Brunson his respect, or was he telling the Knicks, protect that core because the king might be watching? Where are you watching from right now? Comment your city below. If you believe Brunson is untouchable, press 1. If you think the Knicks should chase LeBron, press 2. And subscribe, because this story is just getting started. The guard nobody saw coming. Jalen Brunson was never supposed to become the face of New York basketball. That is what makes this story so dangerous for every team that ever doubted him. He was not drafted like a future superstar. He was not promoted as the next face of the league. He did not enter the NBA with a billion-dollar spotlight following every step. He came in as a second-round guard, undersized, overlooked, and easy for executives to underestimate. But the problem with Brunson was simple. People kept measuring his height instead of measuring his heart. In Dallas, he was useful, he was smart, he was tough, he was reliable. But to the Mavericks, he was never treated like a foundation piece. He was treated like a good player next to Luka Doncic, a supporting guard who could help, maybe be moved, maybe be extended, maybe be replaced if a bigger name became available. And that mistake changed NBA history, because Brunson was quietly becoming something more. Every playoff possession made him sharper. Every doubt made him colder. Every time someone said he was too small, too limited, too ordinary, he stored it away and turned it into fuel. Then New York opened the door. The Knicks did not just offer him money, they offered him belief. They offered him a city desperate for a leader, a coach who trusted him, a front office that understood his background, and a stage big enough to reveal who he really was. And Brunson did not shrink. Madison Square Garden can expose fake stars faster than any arena in America. The pressure is loud, the criticism is ruthless, the expectations can swallow players whole, but Brunson walked into that chaos and somehow looked comfortable. He did not try to become someone else. He did not chase attention. He just kept winning possessions, winning locker rooms, and eventually winning over New York. That is why LeBron's praise hit so hard. Because LeBron knows the difference between hype and substance. He has watched stars collapse under pressure. He has watched organizations overthink obvious talent. And when he looked at Brunson, he saw a player who would turn doubt into control. The NBA thought Brunson was a nice story. New York found out he was a franchise. Dallas's mistake that created a champion. The Mavericks did not lose Jalen Brunson in one moment. They lost him piece by piece. They lost him when they structured his rookie deal in a way that allowed him to become unrestricted sooner than they expected. They lost him when they looked at his value through the lens of flexibility instead of loyalty. They lost him when they kept wondering what he could bring back in a trade instead of asking what he could become if they truly believed in him. That is the painful part for Dallas fans. Brunson was not begging to escape. He was not some unhappy player forcing his way out. At one point, he was willing to stay. He wanted security. He wanted respect. He wanted the team that drafted him to look him in the eye and say, "You are part of our future." But Dallas hesitated. And in the NBA, hesitation can be more expensive than a bad contract. The Mavericks waited because they wanted options. They wanted to preserve trade flexibility. They wanted to keep the door open for a bigger move. They thought they were being smart. They thought they were protecting themselves. But while they were protecting possibilities, New York was building a plan. The Knicks understood what Dallas missed. They saw Brunson's family ties. They saw his relationship with Tom Thibodeau. They saw his maturity, his leadership, his playoff toughness. They saw a player who did not need to be sold on New York because New York already felt connected to his story. So when Dallas finally realized the threat was real, it was already too late. Trade talks went nowhere, extension talks had lost their power, the Knicks were waiting, Brunson was ready, and the Mavericks were left watching a player they once controlled walk into Madison Square Garden and become everything they failed to imagine. That is why this story still burned. Because Brunson did not become great by accident. He became great after being underestimated by the team that should have known him best. And now every time he raises a trophy, every time Knicks fans chant his name, every time LeBron praises his game, Dallas is reminded of one brutal truth. Sometimes the biggest trade mistake is the one you never make. How New York built the perfect storm. New York did not just sign Jalen Brunson. They built an environment where he could become unavoidable. That is the part people miss when they talk about stars. Talent matters, but timing matters too. Fit matters. Trust matters. The people around a player can either unlock him or slowly drain him. And with Brunson, the Knicks built something that felt personal from the beginning. Leon Rose understood relationships. Tom Thibodeau understood Brunson's toughness. The Villanova connection gave the locker room a built-in trust that most teams spend years trying to create. Josh Hart was not just a teammate. He was a brother in basketball. The organization did not ask Brunson to prove he belonged every single day. They gave him the keys and let him drive. That changed everything. Because Brunson is not the loudest superstar. He does not dominate through flash. He controls games through patience, angles, footwork, balance, and pressure. He breaks defenders down slowly, then punishes them when they lean the wrong way. He turns ordinary possessions into uncomfortable decisions. And the Knicks shaped the roster around that rhythm. OG Anunoby brought defense and physicality. Mikal Bridges brought length, versatility, and playoff-level discipline. Karl Anthony Towns gave New York another offensive weapon who could stretch the floor and punish mismatches. Around Brunson, the Knicks did not build a collection of names, they built a machine. That machine gave him room to lead. And when Brunson took less money to give New York more flexibility, the entire league should have understood what was happening. That was not just a contract decision, that was a culture decision. That was a star telling the front office, I believe in this enough to sacrifice. Those are the moments that create championship team. Not just trades, not just headlines, not just max contracts, sacrifice. That is what LeBron saw. A team where the best player was not just chasing numbers, but helping build the future. A franchise that had finally stopped acting desperate and started acting dangerous. For decades, the Knicks wanted a savior. With Brunson, they found something better. They found a leader who made everyone else believe. What LeBron really sees in Brunson, LeBron James does not study basketball like a fan. He studies it like a general. So when LeBron watched Jalen Brunson, he was not just seeing points. He was not just seeing a left-handed guard hitting tough shots in the playoffs. He was reading the deeper language of winning. The pace, the patience, the emotional control. The ability to carry pressure without letting it turn into panic. That is why Brunson fascinated him. Because Brunson does not look like the modern superstar prototype. He is not a giant wing with impossible athleticism. He is not flying above defenders or overwhelming the game with size. He wins through craft. He wins through details. He wins by making defenders feel like they are always half a second late. LeBron respects that because LeBron understands how hard it is. For 20 years, LeBron has been judged by championships, legacy, leadership, and every decision he makes. He knows what it means when the entire league turns one player into a debate. He knows what it feels like when every mistake becomes a headline and every victory becomes an argument about history. Brunson stepped into that same fire in New York, and he did not blink. When the playoffs got loud, Brunson got quieter. When the criticism grew, he focused harder. When the noise became unbearable, he shut it out and played with the kind of discipline that reminded people of LeBron's own postseason mentality. That connection mattered because LeBron is not just praising a player. He is recognizing a mindset. He sees Brunson as proof that leadership does not always need to be loud. Sometimes leadership is walking into the biggest arena in America, carrying the heaviest expectations in basketball, and calmly making the right play again and again. That is why LeBron's words felt bigger than a compliment. He was not saying Brunson had a good run. He was saying Brunson had become a standard. And when a player like LeBron calls your game real, the entire NBA has to reconsider what it thought it knew. Because LeBron has seen manufactured stars. He has seen empty numbers. He has seen hype disappear in May and June. Brunson did not disappear. He became larger. And that is why the king was watching. LeBron's own future is the hidden twist. The reason LeBron's comments became so explosive is because his own future is unsettled. If LeBron were locked into a clear final chapter, his praise for Brunson would feel simple. Respect from one champion to another. A legend acknowledging a younger star, a basketball mind, appreciating another basketball mind. But that is not the situation. The Lakers are no longer a sure thing. LeBron has already given them years of elite play, historic moments, and a championship banner. But the question now is whether Los Angeles can still give him a real path to another ring. At this stage of his career, LeBron is not chasing empty applause. He is chasing meaning. He is chasing one last perfect basketball situation, and that is where the rumors begin. Cleveland will always be emotional. It is home, it is history, it is the place where he delivered the impossible. A third run with the Cavaliers would be poetic, but poetry does not guarantee contention. Golden State would be cinematic. LeBron and Stephen Curry together would shake the entire sports world. Two rivals from the defining battles of an era suddenly joining forces for one final chase. It would be massive. It would be unforgettable. But it would also come with questions about age, health, and whether the Warriors still have enough around them. Then there is New York, and New York is different because the Knicks are not a rebuilding dream. They are not selling LeBron on hope. They are offering a completed structure, a championship core, a proven leader, a massive market, and a city where one more ring would echo forever. That is why Brunson becomes so important. If LeBron is looking at New York, he is not looking at a blank canvas. He is looking at Brunson's team, Brunson's culture, Brunson's locker room, Brunson's city. And that means LeBron's public praise may also be a message about what he would want protected if he ever stepped into that building. Do not tear it apart. Do not get greedy. Do not chase a bigger name by damaging the foundation. Because if LeBron is considering the Knicks, he is not coming to rescue a broken team. He is coming to join a dangerous one. Why Brunson cannot be treated like a trade piece. There are players you trade, then there are players you build around. Jalen Brunson has crossed that line. That is what LeBron's comments seem to underline, whether he said it directly or not. Brunson is no longer just an asset on a spreadsheet. He is no longer a contract number, a roster slot, or a name inside a trade machine. He is the emotional and strategic center of the Knicks. And those players are different. When a team finally finds someone who can carry the locker room, handle the media, survive playoff pressure, connect with the city, and still perform in the final minutes, that team has found something rare. You do not casually move that. You do not risk that just because a bigger name becomes available. That is how franchises destroy good things. The Knicks spent years chasing stars who never came. They watched other teams build contenders, while New York kept searching for the one player who could change everything. Then Brunson arrived without the usual superstar packaging and quietly became exactly what they needed. Now the temptation begins. Because when you win, people start asking how you can win bigger. Can you add LeBron? Can you chase Giannis? Can you move Towns? Can you reshape the roster before other teams catch up? Can you turn a champion into a super team? Those questions sound exciting, but they can also be dangerous. The smartest teams know the difference between improving and overreacting. Improvement protects what works. Overreaction breaks what made you special. And Brunson is what makes the Knicks special. He is not just the scorer, he is the stabilizer. He is the reason the offense has an identity. He is the reason role players know where they fit. He is the reason Madison Square Garden feels like it has a heartbeat again. That is why LeBron's praise matters. Because LeBron has seen teams make mistakes around foundational players. He has lived through front offices getting too clever. He knows what happens when a franchise loses sight of the person who makes the whole machine function. So the message to New York should be simple. Add if you can. Improve if you must, but do not touch the soul of the team. And right now, that soul is Jalen Brunson. The risk of breaking a championship core. The most dangerous moment for a championship team is not always when it loses. Sometimes it is right after it wins. That is when confidence can turn into arrogance. That is when front offices start believing they are one move away from becoming unstoppable. That is when outside voices get louder, agents get active, rumors multiply, and every superstar name suddenly feels available. The Knicks are entering that dangerous zone. They have the trophy, they have the parade, they have the city behind them, they have a core that proved itself under pressure. But now they also have expectations that are bigger than anything this group has ever faced. Winning once makes you beloved. Winning again makes you historic, and that pressure can push teams into risky decisions. The idea of adding another major star is tempting. Of course it is. LeBron in New York would be one of the biggest basketball stories ever. Giannis in New York would shake the league. Any superstar next to Brunson would create endless headlines. But the hard question is this: What would New York have to sacrifice? Would they have to move key defenders? Would they have to lose depth? Would they have to change the locker room balance? Would Brunson still have the same control? Would the team still feel like the Knicks? Or would it become a collection of famous names trying to recreate chemistry that already existed? That is the trap. Basketball is not played on paper. The best roster is not always the roster with the biggest names. The best team is the one where roles make sense, trust is real, and pressure does not break communication. The Knicks already have that. That is why LeBron's admiration is so important. He is not just praising Brunson's talent. He is praising what New York built around him. The discipline, the trust, the sacrifice, the shared hunger. Those things cannot be replaced in a trade. If the Knicks add LeBron without damaging the structure, the league has a problem. But if they rip apart the structure to chase the idea of LeBron, New York could create a different problem for itself. A championship culture is hard to build. It is even harder to rebuild after you break it by choice. The three endings waiting for LeBron and New York, there are three ways this story can end, and every one of them would change the NBA. The first ending is the safest one. LeBron stays with the Lakers. He decides that Los Angeles still gives him the best balance of comfort, legacy, family, and basketball opportunity. The Lakers make a move, improve the roster, and convince him that one more run is possible. In that version, his praise for Brunson becomes exactly what it looked like on the surface. Respect from a legend to a champion. But even that ending would leave a mark, because LeBron publicly elevated Brunson's status. He made the league look at the Knicks differently. He gave New York's leader the kind of validation that changes how fans, players, and front offices talk about him. The second ending is the emotional one. LeBron chooses Cleveland or Golden State. Cleveland would bring his story full circle. Home again. One last chapter where it all began. Golden State would create the wildest partnership of the modern era, with LeBron and Curry turning years of rivalry into one final chase. Both would be powerful, but neither has the same fresh energy as New York. That brings us to the third ending. LeBron finds a way to the Knicks. That is the ending that would break the internet. LeBron James walking into Madison Square Garden, not as the savior, not as the only star, but as the final piece next to Jalen Brunson, the king joining the city that Brunson just conquered. The old icon linking with the new one. The league's greatest long-term chess player stepping into the most dramatic stage in basketball. But that ending only works if New York does not panic. LeBron cannot arrive in a damaged version of the Knicks. He cannot join a team that traded away too much of its soul. If he comes, he has to come into the culture Brunson built, not the wreckage of a front office trying too hard to impress him. That is the key. The Knicks must decide whether they are strong enough to protect what they have while still exploring what they could become. LeBron must decide whether his final chapter needs control, comfort, or one last impossible challenge. And Brunson has already made his statement. He won. Now the rest of the league has to respond. The lesson behind LeBron, Brunson, and the future. The real lesson in this story is not just about trade. It is about trust. Jalen Brunson trusted his work when other people trusted measurements. He trusted New York when critics questioned the contract. He trusted his teammates when the pressure got loud. He trusted the process enough to leave money on the table and help the Knicks build something bigger than himself. That kind of trust is rare, and when it works, it becomes powerful. Dallas is the warning. New York is the reward. The Mavericks treated Brunson like a question. The Knicks treated him like an answer. Dallas hesitated. New York committed. Dallas watched value walk out the door. New York watched leadership walk into Madison Square Garden and turn into a championship. That is why LeBron's voice matters so much here. Because LeBron has lived every side of this story. He has been the young star carrying too much. He has been the veteran choosing his destination. He has been the player front offices tried to satisfy, build around, and sometimes failed. He knows that great teams are not just created by talent. They are created by respect, timing, sacrifice, and honesty. So if the Knicks want to protect their future, they must protect the culture first. That does not mean they should be afraid to improve. Great franchises keep looking for edges. They stay aggressive, they stay honest, but they also understand that not every shiny opportunity is worth the cost. Sometimes the most courageous move is not the biggest trade. Sometimes it is keeping faith with the people who brought you there. For LeBron, the final chapter is about more than another jersey. It is about how he wants the basketball world to remember his last great decision. Does he chase comfort? Does he chase poetry? Or does he chase the brightest stage in the world beside a leader who just proved that belief can change history? For Brunson, the mission is simpler. Keep leading. Keep blocking out the noise. Keep proving that heart, preparation, and humility still matter in a league obsessed with size and spectacle. And for every young player watching, the message is human and clear. Do not let doubt make you bitter, let it make you sharper. Do not tear people down to rise. Build something strong enough that others want to join it. If you believe Brunson has earned untouchable status, comment 1. If you think LeBron should finish his career in New York, comment too. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with every NBA fan who knows this story is far from over.